All right. Hey, this has been a lot of drama with the Stop Killing Games initiative. This is Crispy Roo, and I'm a game developer for industry. I work for Niantic. Now I work for Scopely. I'm gonna say that again. I work for Niantic. Now I work for Scopely, and I'm just gonna give my thoughts on the Stop Killing Games initiative coming from a developer specifically. I'm a software engineer. I just want to clear some things up real quick. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start with the original video here with goes over some slides that I want to discuss real quick. So let me pull that up. All right. And it's going to be this one. So let's just go over these real quickly. I'm going to switch on over to this view. I'm going to hide my camera because my camera kind of gets in the way a little bit. So does the chat. So let's hide that. All right. So I think maybe we can just listen to it real quick and then we'll go over the bullet points.
Free-to-play games that contain microtransactions. Because if you purchased a microtransaction as a good, then the game is made unplayable, well then you just lost your goods. This would not require publishers to get...
Okay, yeah, so require video games sold to customers to be in a reasonably working state at the time of shutdown and of support, okay? Got it. Prohibit any requirements for video games sold to customers to connect to the publisher or affiliated parties after support ends. That is interesting. I haven't heard too many people talk about this too much. Because essentially, if one of the options to keep a game up is just having the publisher continually host their server, which would basically mean logging in. And that sounds like connect to the publishers or affiliate parties after support ends. Maybe I'm just misinterpreting this. Customers to connect to the publishers or affiliated parties after support ends. Yeah, I'm just going to ignore this bullet point for now. Require the above also apply to video games that sell game assets or features. Microtransactions to customers. Require the above also apply to video games that sell game assets or features. Microtransactions to customers.
goods. This would not require publishers to give up any of their intellectual property rights, give up their source code, though that one would still be nice. It wouldn't require endless support.
So I think in many cases, so I was mistaken initially about this, but I think in many cases, the publisher would have to give up source code, but it actually depends on what language the server was written in. If it's written in Unity, it's in C#. That means if you give the code to the community, they can just decompile C# code. If the server is written in Java or C#, then that code can just be decompiled even if it's given in the binary format. Because I guess this is really when we're talking about publishers giving it the source code, I think we're really talking about the server because the client code doesn't need to be the client code could just be served as a client as it normally is, like in Unity. It just you just send like the executable file to the person and they just run the game. But for most games now, they're like live service games. You need to connect to a server, and that means that you need to have the community be able to run that server, and that means giving giving the binary to the community so they can run that server. And depending on what language that binary is written in determines whether or not that source code would be available to see to the community. So if it's in C++, Rust, or Golang, then you can pretty much it's pretty hard to decompile those languages because they actually compile down to bytecode. If it's written in Java, C#, basically any other language, then it's pretty easy decompilable. And it's like if it's written in like Python or something, it doesn't even compile into anything. So you're definitely giving up all the code. So that's my thoughts on publishers requiring to give up source code. Yeah, the other option behind that is they would either just run their own servers endlessly. I mean, which some companies do, I guess, at least for a very long time.
They can end it anytime they want as far as we're concerned.
But like it's saying, this initiative is saying is it does not have to do this. I think they have to do one of these things.
You wouldn't need to host servers.
Like host servers?
They would have to either patch out that requirement or else allow customers to host them privately. Assume any liability for what customers do with their copies of games.
Require publishers to assume liability for customers' actions. Yeah, I mean, this one's kind of easy. Yeah, I don't see why the publishers would have to assume liability for their customers' actions. That seems kind of crazy, but I do think one of these things has to happen. Either give up the source code or give us a binary if it's written in one of those, and then we don't necessarily have to see the source code. Like I think, yeah, I know Minecraft. I think their Minecraft servers run on like Java jars, which you can kind of decompile easily. So you can't. So in that case, you kind of do give up the source code. It's either that or host the servers continuously. If it's a lot of the times, I think publishers are just gonna have to give up their source code. Yeah, I don't see why publishers have to give up their intellectual property rights. You don't have to do that too. If you give up, just because you lend your code to someone doesn't mean you have to give up the rights to it. That doesn't make any sense. And yeah, but again, yeah, I think at least one of these things has to happen, even if not all of them are required. I mean, I think at least one of them is.
And finally, nothing about this initiative would have any impact on publisher business practices while the game is being supported. In other words, publishers can continue doing whatever they want as long as...
And like the reason I'm talking about like a game that requires a server is just because that's probably like that's just basically the thing to discuss, right? Because in a multiplayer, I mean like if you have a single player game that doesn't require a server, then this is like, in that case, yeah, that's the easy case. So that means, of course, that there should be no world where a company can just end your single player game. Like if I bought Pokemon or something from like my Pokemon Blue on my Game Boy Advance or something, or whatever it was on, like if they could just like stop me from playing that game somehow, that would be kind of crazy. And I don't think a company, I've never really heard of a company like intentionally removing a single player game from a player like that, even though I guess in the licensing they technically could if they had somehow had the means to it. The Crew on the other hand is like a multiplayer car racing game, and like that requires like server support. So it's not like the company is like blatantly trying to remove access to players from playing their game. They're just literally not hosting the servers anymore because like I guess they were like going, I don't know what's going on, but are they going bankrupt? Let me check that up. Bankrupt. The Crew? I don't know. I guess the game just didn't make enough money. Company that made The Crew. Oh, it's Ubisoft? Oh shit, they got a lot of money. Yeah, Ubisoft, yeah, I don't know what's going on with Ubisoft, but I guess the game just wasn't making any money for Ubisoft and they just shut it down. But I mean, like, I think that's just because the game was costing them money. A single player game doesn't cost any money to like support. There's no if there's no there's if there's no server, it's basically free. Like, it doesn't cost any money for the publisher to let players keep playing the games.
Because you get to keep your game. It amazes me when some people say that's going too far in favor of the consumer. Though to be fair, that's probably not most Europeans. The idea here is we're just trying to stop games from being destroyed. That's it. So we're taking as narrow an approach as possible that still solves the problem. If we get enough signatures, then this goes before the European Union to be considered as new law.
But yeah, I think I'm totally on board with the idea of stop killing games, like preventing, at least like updating the licensing so that the so that the license doesn't like give full control to the publisher on like how you can use that game. There definitely needs to be a shift over to the consumer that allows the consumer more rights with what they purchase. And it's unlikely that like a company is going to revoke service from a player being able to play one of their single player games. But I mean, I still don't want to give them the power to do that. Some like future where like they like find out they can ban players from playing their single player games because they don't like them or something. I mean, it was like, that's not too crazy to believe in. So I definitely don't want to give companies that sort of power. It definitely does get like a little bit iffy when you're talking about like basically live service games or online multiplayer games. And I think like Pirate Software just like he was like giving birth to a cow when he started like listening about how he thought this initiative was like about giving live service games, like making live service games into single player games, which is like pretty much impossible. I mean, maybe it's not impossible, but it's basically a different game at that point. So maybe like it's like in that way it is impossible. It just doesn't really make any sense. But then again, that's like not the point of the initiative. Like the point of the initiative is to allow a way for the community to be able to play the game. And that means by being able to run their own community servers, pretty much, if it requires that. Yeah, and so there's like a whole lot of drama surrounding this. Like if I go, I can like pull up. Give me a second. I'm gonna pull some stuff up. What's it? Hey, Uranium, the TLDR of the whole stop killing games. Oh, I don't know if you're still in here, but the TLDR is basically this guy is like spearheading an initiative about companies being able to after you purchase a game, being able to like prevent you from accessing or playing that game even after you purchase it. And The Crew is like the most blatant example where it's like an online multiplayer racing game. And Ubisoft, basically, I guess the game just wasn't making enough money, and Ubisoft just shut down the servers for the game, and then it's unplayable now because you can't log in. A lot of people got upset over that, and this initiative is like a way for companies to stop doing that. So like, what they're saying is essentially that Ubisoft should not be able to just shut down their servers, uh, just like that. They should at least keep them running, for the players that bought the game, or have an easy enough way for the community to continually to have some community server to host it. Some easy way to do that, and that's usually by providing some binary for the server to be run with, or just giving away the source code. So that's a TLDR. We want more consumer rights for video games. Let's see. Let me pull up a link. Okay, I'm gonna pull up the drama surrounding it. But before I do that, I just want to clarify one thing on a previous slide. Just really want to clarify this slide real quick. Let's see. Go back Twitch. And so again, like this a lot of the times won't require publishers to give up source code, but it really depends on like what engine they used and what if whether or not the server they have a server and what language that server is rated in. So basically like C# and Java code is a lot of games are written in C# and Java. Especially if you're using Unity, you're definitely using C# in the front end for your code. And those languages are easily decompiled. So if you give someone a binary to run the server, that means they can pretty much see all the code that you written for that server. If your game is written in Unity, for example, I guess that it doesn't like if you have like the Unity code. If you have a game written in like Unity, for example, you can pretty much like decompile the Unity code. There are ways to like see all the code inside. And yeah, so if it's written in C++ or Rust or Golang, which there are a lot of games written in C++ because of Unreal Engine. And in that case, they can give a binary that doesn't require releasing the source code for their server. They can get away with allowing the community to run the game without them being able to see the source code. But at the same time, like, man, I would just make that stuff open source, because if there's bugs in the game, there's no way to fix them. If you don't make them open source, the community won't be able to do anything about it. I guess I don't know. I guess there's a bunch of intellectual property surrounding that. Like, I don't know, like, but like in the software world, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's open source, and like I think like it's not going to be the end of the world for a game developer to like publish their source code for their game. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like too much of a big deal for me. Like, there's not going to be any company secrets in that source code. It's just going to be a bunch of game source code. I don't know. I'm pro open source here. It's probably not going to happen. But I mean, like, if their code is written in Java or C#, you might as well just make it open source because you can see it anyway. Yeah, so that's all. So that's just wanted to clarify on that real quick. So I'm going to shift gears to the drama part of it. Give me a second. Can't they just shoot a patch to the game so the game goes into single player with some LAN compatibility? For multiplayer games, So local area network, that would only work if, that's a good question. That would only work if the game was written in such a way that that works. And what I mean by that is like if you have a game like Warcraft 3 where you have one player is actually the server of the game. Like in Warcraft 3, when you play online with someone in Warcraft 3, the game decides who becomes the server, and like everybody's ping is basically relative to that person. So like in that case, like you could do like a local area network because it's already coded in such a way that one player becomes the server. There's other multiplayer games where it's not like that. I'm pretty sure like the modern MOBAs like League of Legends and Dota isn't like that. It's like instead of anyone becoming the server is just like whatever Riot has. And there's like a bunch of, and then like live service games are also different, a whole different beast. So like they're not necessarily multiplayer games, but like everything requires like a server thing plug for it to work. But you might be able to get around that with like having like a local server somehow if they can like figure that out. So you can keep playing the game. You could probably just like replace the whole thing with like a local SQL Lite server for live service games. It might be possible. But yeah, some games like require like where one of the clients just ends up becoming the server for the rest of the players, and then everyone connects to that computer. And in that case, again, I have like a local area network kind of thing. But if the game is coded so that like that doesn't happen at all, and it's always just the server that the company is hosting, then you can't do that very easily. That would require a lot of work. I'm gonna pull some stuffs up real quick. Okay. So yeah, I guess a lot of people are getting upset at each other. Penguin Zero is getting upset. So let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Try not to get ads. Getting ads.
I have no doubt most of you have noticed.
Okay, hold up. Switch over to this. I can get over here. I can close this. And I think, actually, let me just save that just in case I need to bring it back up.
Delusional for a town.
I can bring my cam back in too because I don't really we don't need all the space this time. Let's come back. All right, so Penguin Zero is really mad at Pirate Software because it looks like he really misrepresented what was going on. I'm just gonna go to the parts about Pirate Software real quick. This is just crazy. Pirate Software seems really upset about something. Like really upset. Let me see if I can pull it up. I guess we start here.
No, eat my entire ass. That the level of stupid that I just had to receive was like sitting on Twitter for 12 hours. This shit sucks. That's a really stupid
oh my gosh, dude, I can't help but laugh, but I probably shouldn't.
ass move. That's an incredibly stupid ass move. I think this is ass. This is complete garbage. All of this can eat shit then. I dropped the mask entirely. I have no qualms about that.
Even the
they can eat my
FAQ?
entire ass. The whole thing. That sounds stupid as shit.
Yeah, I'm sure it's Ross and his community that are actually the assholes
Oh my
here.
gosh.
Brother, come on, you can't. possibly be calling the wambulance with a side of French fries here about people being mean to you when you are literally the one that started the shit flinging and name calling? And by the way, Ross never even addressed this for 10 months because he didn't want to dilute the initiative into just having it be boiled down to drama between creators, which I think was actually very big of him. The only reason he's talking about it now is because it's at the end of its life and so many people still don't understand it because of someone like Pirate Software misrepresenting it. So he's finally setting the record straight there. Anyway, he did delete that tweet, but just a little while ago, he made a new tweet.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think this basically just says, okay, this is a whole lot of, let's dig into what I actually did and said. I put out 2 videos on August 6th and August 7th. Many people have not watched them and just calling me a liar, attacking my character. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Very long.
Maybe we can find anything specific to about the initiative instead of just name throwing like poop at each other.
Useless our conversation was, unfortunately.
Sounds like they're just throwing poop at each other. It's like getting nowhere. But yeah, I think
He's an 8.
Yeah, Hutcher, I did. I think it's really hilarious to me that that entire community is so butt mad at me for putting out a video 10 months ago about their stuff and then not being refuted, and now it's my fault that everything is going wrong for them.
I cannot.
Oh my gosh, he's just oh my gosh. Yeah, they're just this is just a elementary school recess or something, I don't know. But the reason, like, let me find a video where he's actually mad.
You know what this is right here, pal?
Like the actual
Not
reasons.
tough guy. Yeah.
Here we go.
Talking about single-player games that do not need a server to support them.
No.
And as much as they wanted to
Ross is like, no.
be about specifically games where it is a single-player game that has always online functionality, it would impact every live service game that exists. Instead of just targeting single-player, always online games.
No, that's not what it is. Stop Killing Games includes single-player games, but nothing about it is specific to them. He completely made that up, and I have no idea where he got that impression. It's the first line on the website. Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. But the movement includes all this stuff from earlier, and he was mostly talking about the initiative.
He didn't even get the Cliff Notes summary right. He missed all the QTEs and got the bad ending on understanding the initiative from the jump here. Ross is correct. This has nothing to do with just single-player only games that require an online connection, that when the online connection is severed, you lose access to the game. Like, yeah, that is included in all of this, but that's not like what the whole movement is about. And for some reason, Pirate Software is stun-locked on that, like fixated, as if that is the actual like meat and potatoes of Stop Killing Games. They need to be more specific in their language about it being single-player, always online connectivity games. When that's just not what it's about. Like, they're not being specific about that because that is not what they are specifically targeting. It is about the whole practice of destroying games that consumers have already purchased and having no end-of-life plans for games that are being sunset. So, for example, The Crew. The Crew is an example everyone is going to reference and talk about because Ubisoft is still currently in a lawsuit battling against it for what happened with this game. I've yapped about it quite a bit, so I'm not just going to regurgitate that. I'm sure a lot of you already know the story about it. But basically, you buy The Crew, Ubisoft pulls the plug on the servers, you can't play The Crew anymore, now it's just an old wet dream of what once was. And they are facing a lawsuit, and while this is in the umbrella of Stop Killing Games, it is not the only thing Stop Killing Games is referencing when it comes to this practice. Pirate Software is so hung up on it being single-player games that people lose access to, when that is a component of it, but not the entire focus.
Well, the short version is the initiative is about requiring publishers to have end-of-life plans for games they've sold to customers in the future. So when they shut them down, customers can continue running them without their support. So that's one thing Thor doesn't understand, but he also seems to think this is about converting multiplayer games to single-player.
Transitioning an entire multiplayer server-side game into a single player video game, which means rebalancing the entire experience around single player, rebuilding everything in the entire game. How are you going to do that with Final Fantasy 14? You're just going to make all the raids soloable? Imagine the day that World of Warcraft shut.
Yeah, I don't know how Pirate Software ended up at the conclusion of that the game has to be single player. But I guess like the initiative is like their headline is that like any way that prevents a game from being killed is like the idea. And then for some reason he like latched onto the idea that the way they do that is by making a game single player. And I don't know why he thought about that first rather than just like having a way for the community to host a server. But he got fixated on that. And then it sounds like he's just double and tripling down on that for some reason. Yeah, I don't know. Like Pirate Software has like a history of like just like doubling down on whatever he says, and even though it's wrong, probably just a big ego. Big ego. We're talking about a huge ego. Yeah, and so that's what the drama is all about, because like he basically talked a whole bunch of smack on the whole initiative because he thought it was about making games single player, which is like really hard to do. And yeah, I don't know. What a hill to die on, man. Like I don't get it at all. Like why are we dying on that hill instead of like of all the hills to die on, you're dying on the hill that's like okay, there's an initiative where we're trying to stop corporations from like getting rid of all these consumer rights, and then Pirate Software comes along. He's like, no, this is way too hard. I don't want to have companies be forced to make games single player, but then they don't have to. They can just release a way to host the servers, and it doesn't even have to be like completely about games that require servers. It could just even give more rights to people with single player games so that they have more ownership over their single player games that they own. And to me, that seems like a good idea. I don't know why Pirate Software is dying on the hill of that this is a horrible idea. Sounds like he's just making a bunch of enemies for not a good reason. I think there's like better hills to fight on. Like, don't lose your reputation over this hill. That's actually like pretty much, I think it's overall a good thing. There's like worse things in the world that you can fight and die on hills for. So this to me makes no sense. I'm like really confused about all of it. I understand why Charlie's really mad at Pirate Software now. And every time it comes up now, it's just like really it's like drama. Like someone's like really mad at him and it's like his attitude is like the main cause of all that. Because he just like hates taking accountability for stuff. Okay. So I'm just going to wrap this up right now. I got to go for now. I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for coming to the stream. Feel free to follow, I guess, if you feel like it. Much appreciated. Cheers, my friend.